Amazing. All right. Welcome to BONN PARK. I'm Sara.
And I'm Marshall.
And I'm Coral Andrews.
Done.
Welcome.
Perfect. End of show.
Yeah.
Well, that was fast.
All right, we'll get into it.
Welcome to BONN PARK.
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 Coral, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Really, it's my pleasure to be here. You guys are so cool. And I got to say congratulations on everything you have done so far and all the awards you've received. Well deserved.
Thank you so much. That's like super sweet of you. We
Thank you for supporting us right out of the gate.
right out of the gate. Yep.
Like having us on your show.
Oh, for sure.
Before we even released the first episode, you were chatting with us, and we really appreciate that. You kind of gave a shit about what we were doing.
I did. You got to come back to Coral Rocks. That's my Saturday show.
That sounds good.
'Cause that's a lot of fun.
I've been on your show a couple times now because you had me on to talk about playtime as well.
I
I
did.
really appreciate that. And thank you for coming to my movie. I also was great seeing you there. I think you grabbed my arm and you just said, fucking amazing. And you walked out.
I did. And I was with this little girl on the weekend, and she has this little toy called Noni, as I was telling you before. And she's lost Noni a couple times. Noni's always come back to her, but she's really attached to little Noni, her puppet. And you're right, like people are very attached to their toys. There's like an emotional connection, and it never goes away.
Didn't you have a childhood toy called either Glovey or Mr. Handy or something?
I had Nursey.
Nursey, yeah.
Lovey or Miss? What kind of toy did you have?
Mr. Hand.
No, I heard Coral talk about this when she interviewed you.
All right.
Yeah.
But wait, what are we? What is Nursey?
Nursey was this little puppet that I had that I carried around with me everywhere.
Yeah.
And until she got, old and torn and everything else, but I had to have her with me all the time. And we had a teddy bear too. My brother had a teddy bear, which was yellow. It was yellow, and then it was faded. It was missing an eye, but it didn't matter, right? Because it was Teddy, and it was Nursey. So we had to have those toys. They were a major big deal for us.
Was it a nurse puppet?
Yeah, it was a little nurse puppet.
So that's where you got the name from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nursey.
Yeah.
And then after this whole media run that Marshall, the multimedia promotion team put on for me, then you sent me the most disturbing image of a toy. What was that?
Right. Hugo, the man of 1,000 faces. Do you remember this? It's like
It was a disturbing
bald
looking
head
toy.
on just like top of just shoulders, and you could put all these different parts on. Like he could have a mustache and then a beard and then
Oh, like Mr. Potato Head?
Yeah.
But Mr.
except-
Potato Head's cute and
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
This guy's
Oh.
face was like stoic and stern.
yeah, it's from the 1970s.
Everyone go
Oh.
Google it. Hugo, the man of 1,000 faces.
Oh,
Yeah.
I will.
yeah.
But enough about toys. Should we not talk about your book, Coral? Wait, can I tell the story I always tell every single time I run into you, which is
Sure.
I've known you since I was a teenager because you managed my teenage band that I was in with Alan Lung and Sean Kuntz. And that with the connection was they were friends with Steph.
Yes.
And I think Sean and Steph are married now. And
Yes.
Steph's mom was Rose, and that's the connection. That's how we ended up meeting. Rose is your friend.
Rose is my bestest friend.
Yeah, and
Yes.
you managed our band, and you got us gigs, and you got us paid,
Oh
and
my
you put the word out there.
God.
So I really appreciate it. Thank you for that.
I'm so happy I did that.
I don't think we paid you at all. I think you did it out of the kindness of your heart.
I probably did for Steph and Sean
Yeah.
Rose, and
Yeah.
we go way back.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time, and Sean was always into music.
Yeah.
So I thought, let's help these people out. Let's get them some airplay, and that's what I love to do. I love to champion artists.
Thank you. And
been
you did
doing it forever.
You got us on the radio. You got us shows. And I think it's so funny because Alan was the brains behind our machine for sure. It's one of those people that can pick up any old instrument,
Yes.
and play it. Just tuba, sure, let's give it a run. And then now he's a tuba player, But he actually created and recorded the BONN Park theme song.
Oh, really?
All by his lonesome. Yep. So thanks, Alan.
Oh, you have to say hi to Alan for me.
I will.
And I better message Sean and Steph and Rose.
Tell them I said hi too.
I will.
Too. But I always have to tell that story because it's such a warm memory for me. And those were, I don't know, the good old days.
Yar.
Yar, exactly. But we are here to talk about your book. Tell us about The Back Door.
Oh, boy. I don't even know where to start.
Right?
I worked there for 20 years. I was a waitress upstairs. I got a job
Metro?
around the Metro Tavern, the Schnitzel House, yeah.
Yep.
And I got
Many meals there.
It's funny because a lot of people have had meals there and didn't know that downstairs existed, especially people in media.
That was the cool place.
Where they're still kicking their asses for that. Like, how come I didn't know there was anything going downstairs?
It was a bit of a secret.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of a scene. So either you knew about it or you didn't.
Yeah. And if you didn't, you weren't cool enough
And,
to.
well, no, it was basically, how the hell do you get into this
Yeah.
place? So, through the back parking lot, through this gray door, down the stairs, bottom of the stairs, another door, a little hallway, another door into the bar. And when you opened that third door, you never knew what you were going to find. Either a couple of people sitting there and a DJ, or the place packed to the rafters and no place to sit.
Yeah.
So it was a time and a place. I don't think it can be repeated, but I was a waitress upstairs. And then there was a guy working downstairs, Mad Mel Johnson, an English DJ. And he had been at a bar called Act One. But really, he got his start of all places at Smitty's Cove down in the basement, like a Westmount, Smitty's Pancake House. So he was down there spinning records, and he was playing Joy Division and all these really cool bands that nobody ever heard of before. Mm-hmm. And he was this moody Mancunian type of guy, And he was dating a waitress down there, so he had fans because they would come visit him at Record World in downtown Kitchener, and then they would follow him to Smitty's, I guess, and they were underage kids, right? And Smitty's was not a place for punk or new wave or anything like that. So eventually Mel left, and then he went to a place called Act One downtown Kitchener, which was underneath a Lebanese restaurant called the Cedars of Lebanon, which was bizarre when you think about it. It was like a big banquet room.
It's also the title of a U2 song now that I think about it.
Yeah. And he was playing down there, and everybody's coming down. Like, nobody had heard of Joy Division or Doll by Doll, or I think he was playing the Smiths, a bunch of Manchester bands anyways, maybe Happy Mondays, probably Sham 69, B-52s, all this kind of stuff. But again, Act One had all the underage kids coming in. So it got busted a couple of times, and then the third time it got busted, curtain closed, so everybody shifts over to the back door, and most of these kids are underage. So Mel's working there on, I think he was working there 3 nights a week, like Mondays, Fridays, Saturdays, something like that. Because there were DJs down, working down at the Metro, it wasn't the back door, there was a dining disco. And they were from Records on Wheels. Kevin D. Bull from Records on Wheels in Kitchener and John Jeffros from Records on Wheels in Cambridge. And they were advising Milan Resdelak. He was the guy that owned the Metro. This crazy Czechoslovakian guy, but super smart and visionary. He started the first disco, and it was a very high-end disco, and it was based on a disco in Yorkville that he and his partner Carla Cubank used to go to, called Fingers, which became Chimes, I guess. But it had Tiffany lamps, the marble, kind of the foam marble tables, the stainless steel dance floor, the mirrored ceiling, the mirrored walls. So Milan goes, okay, I'm going to take that disco and I'm going to bring it to Kitchener and stick it underneath the Schnitzel House that I own. And that worked for a couple of years, but then music was changing because it was 1977. So, disco was kind of fading, and then there was this kind of weird music coming in, like the Sex Pistols and the Clash and Susie and the Banshees, and the kids wanted to listen to that. Mm-hmm. So Kevin and John knew about Mel, And they told Milan, you should come, like, we should have him working at the Metro. So Mel was working on Monday nights, and he would play this really depressing music. I mean, I was in my mid-20s. I didn't know fuck all. I'm such an idiot. So I walk up to the DJ booth, and I go, hey, Mel, do you think you could play something a little happier? And he went, oh, yeah, well, you think you do better? You think you're so fucking good, then you do it. So I went, huh? And he quit. Like, he quit Monday nights. He didn't want to do Monday nights anymore.
This is your fault.
So that's how I got a job DJing on Monday nights. And I talked to Carl Milan, and they said, okay, well, take Monday nights and make it your own, create whatever, and we'll see what happens. So I went downstairs and trained myself how to DJ 2 turntables and a microphone.
Mm-hmm. That's where it's at.
And then I was, working on Monday nights, and then as the Backdoor progressed, sometimes on the weekends. But the first edition of the Backdoor was DJ driven. So there was me, there was Kevin, John Jeffros was there. Kevin was doing a lot of import stuff on Tuesday nights. John was doing new release stuff. And then we had a guy come in called Electric Tex. His real name is Ron Wensloff. And he came in and started playing stuff from Mute Records like Fad Gadget and Normal and all this stuff. And this clothing, like over in England, it was a political thing. When I talked to Billy Duffy from the Cult, he said, well, you were either in a band or on the dole. Like, there was fuck all else to do, right? So over here, like, I'm over in the book, in the first chapter, I'm in the Isle of Wight, and that's where I beat my first punk, not here. So I got here about a year later, and I started working at the Metro. I'm like, what the hell? Oh my God. It looks like, the Sex Pistols have come over here. But everybody got into the fashion and the trend of it. Mm-hmm. Like, it was so exciting. So people would dress as Sid Vicious, or they would dress as Kate Pearson from the V-52s? Mm-hmm. They would dress as that. Or they would dress as Susie or Chrissy Hine. And in my case, I dressed as Lena Lovitch a lot. So the guys were all doing the cool male, all the bands, all the guys. So I thought, well, I'm going to start doing female singers. So I'm going to play Lena Lovitch, and I'm going to play Toya, and I'm going to play Susie, I'm going to play Chrissy Hine, I'm going to play Kate Bush, all this stuff. And then I started dressing like them too, because I was always into theater. So it was kind of a performance art for me on Monday nights. And the one night I did Talking Heads night, and I had 3 heads. So 2 of them were styrofoam, and the other one was real.
Very creative.
So 3 people came up to the booth and went, 1, 2, 3, do you want to dance? And that was a crazy night. But I had some people in my life, a couple of hairdressers, hairstylists, hair designers, hair visionaries, my God. Patty Gillard Bentley and Petra Hornell. And they just said, okay, we're going to do this with your hair tonight.
It was all about the hair.
It was all about the hair, right? So sometimes my hair would be in one of those baskets. They would weave my hair in a basket across the top of my head with long braids and things like that. Patty Gillard did a lot of stuff like that. Petra did a lot of stuff like hair color. Like the one night I wanted to be Nina Hagen. Mm-hmm. So from the White Bunks on Dope album cover, like you would dress as people from album covers, right? And she had black and pink hair. So I came in and my hair was it was black and it had pink streaks and it was wild. I think there's a picture of me in the book as Electra Tex that Electric Tex took. And I have these pink things coming out of my hair. It looked like electronic streaks. I don't even know how we did that, but it was a black light booth. And it was crazy. It was a scene. It was very creative. There were a lot of artists down there, writers down there, and just, people that went, we want to try this. And I guess the way the Backdoor was, it just emboldened everybody to go out there and do what it was they wanted to do in their life. So a lot of famous people came from that little place downstairs in all genres of music and in the arts. So the more I wrote this book, it was like a treasure trove. I'm like, I'm sorry, you played down there? And it's easy, like people were on Facebook. So I could say, do you remember the Backdoor? Remember going down there? Oh my God! Or, oh yeah. And they wouldn't get back to you, right? So it took me a couple of years to put it all together. And the musicians started chiming in as well. I played that bar in 1980, whatever phase it was. I'm like, really? You played down there? And they, would comment for the book. So it was, I just tell people, enjoy the ride, because it was a ride. for about 17 years. It was a real ride. It was crazy.
Yeah, I heard you say you can't recreate something like that, right? Like once
No.
it's gone, it's gone. Right?
Yeah. We had like the night of the book launch at the registry. That was crazy. A lot of people used to go down to the bar in the like late 70s, early 80s. They all went to the Metro for dinner. So it's about, I don't know, 15 of them or something like that. And then they came to the Registry Theater that night.
Nice.
And I thought, well, and we were trying to, like, there was a bar there and everybody was just hanging around. This reminds me of the back door. Getting these people out of here is not going to be easy. But it was so much fun because some of them hadn't seen each other for years. So it was a great reunion for them as well. And they all look great. People say, oh, well, how old are you? And I go, well, I tell them, you got to remember, though, when I was, in the 80s, I was in my 30s. Like, I was still into punk and new wave. And I still am. Mm-hmm. That doesn't change. It's kind of ingrained in you, whatever music you get into. And I think I try to listen to new music as well. I don't pigeonhole myself in one genre because I can't do that. There's all kinds of exciting new bands and sounds coming out all the time. So I like to keep an ear to that.
Well, this is what I really wanted to ask you. I've listened to so much of your work on radio, so much in publication. It's so vast, and so much of your energy is spent talking to other people about their art and their work.
Yes.
I've never had a sense. I'll relate it to, I just watched a lecture with Rod Serling in the Twilight Zone, and it was from 1963. So he's in the third season of Twilight Zone. He just has a handful of students sitting around with him. And he's talking about what makes for a gripping, compelling story. And one of the things he says, he goes, if you've been watching Twilight Zone, you'll see that a running thread through a lot of the episodes he goes, I have an incredibly strong longing to be young again. He said, I feel that's the strongest emotion and feeling I have is I want to be young again. And you will see that throughout the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
But I've never gotten a sense through everything I've ever listened to, what your thing is. Like, what is your thing, this place and time when it comes to music and art that you hold on to more dear than anything else?
I think I'm just driven. I have a passion, whether it's, for music or theater. Yeah. I just keep going. I really don't want to go back to my 20s, my 30s, my 40s. I just every decade has something different, right? So I just keep on going. I don't have a longing to be young again.
And that's why your knowledge is so vast of all the music too. Yeah.
I love talking to people because every interview you do, it doesn't matter. I was writing advertorials for the record, so I was writing about air conditioners and furnaces and stuff and backsplashes. So I go to people's place. Oh, I love your backsplash. Where'd you get that from? What are you talking about? I went, well, I'm writing a story about tiling, and it's really exciting to me. So you find the passion in anything you write about. And I learn, every story I write, I learn something, whether it's a high profile actor from a TV series or just a young musician starting out. You always learn something. And I think that's what keeps me going. I like to raise the profile of people, especially if they're just starting out. In every genre of the arts.
And this has been a theme actually in our interviews today. In podcast time, we just spoke to Mike Morris, Kitchener Center MPP Green Party. And we had a lovely conversation with him, but we talked a lot about learning.
Yes.
And Marshall, I think even your question, it's obvious now, it wasn't obvious when you asked it, but it's obvious now that I'm listening to the two of you that Coral answered it before you even started.
Yeah.
Where she said, I'm always listening to new music. I'm always, wondering what else is out there, and that you're not going to pigeonhole yourself into one genre, right?
No.
And I think that's what keeps us young, and that's what keeps us moving forward. Well, so maybe we have a little something we long for, and I think that's why we see all the hard work that's gone into your book, because that's something that if you don't document it, if you don't relive it, if you don't put it down, that'll be lost forever. And who better to tell this story than you? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you want to jump back into these pages and relive these days.
When I was writing the book, I thought, oh boy, there's things that will never, there's like read between the lines. I'm sure there are people reading the book going, oh God, I remember a time where, and I don't want to put everything in the book. There's a lot of things that will be, what went on at the back door stays at the back door.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Mo Berg from Pursuit of Happiness, who works with this amazing new musician called James Clark, the James Clark Institute. They're a fabulous band. And he said, you know what, Coral, everybody's into nostalgia right now. Everybody wants to look backwards because nobody wants to look forwards. But this was during COVID, right? So I thought, yeah, he's got a point. But I didn't write it for nostalgia. It wasn't the book I was going to write. I was going to write an interview book. That's the book I was going to write.
So what happened? Tell us about that.
Well, Milan and I, we're good pals, and his son was coming over to visit. His son is a very famous DJ called DJ Czech. His real name is Michael Kubank, and he learned how to DJ downstairs. He used to come downstairs and watch me and Kevin going, when he was a kid, like, can I do that? And then the older he got, he got into music. Kevin gave him a job at the store where he was working. I think it was either Records on Wheels or Dr. Disc, because he worked at both stores. I think it was Dr. Disc, actually. And Mike got into his own music, hip hop and rap and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, I want to get into radio, because I was doing, Coral FM, the late night show on CKWR. And I go, okay, well, come be my guest. So he's sitting there and he goes, well, I want to learn. I go, well, you're not going to learn sitting there, so get over here, right? So he learns the board. He gets this show called The Backdoor Boulevard. And it was like the first hip hop rap show around this area, besides a guy in Guelph, I guess. And he just took it and ran with it. And next thing you know, he moves out west. He's at Whistler. He's DJing these nights in Whistler. He becomes DJ Czech. So he comes back to town all these years later. He's at the Starlight. I went, DJ Czech. What? And then I look and I was like, oh my God, it's Mike. So he was, opening for the Chemical Brothers and Daft Punk and all these people, right? So he became quite famous. Of all the DJs downstairs, Mike made it the biggest. So he was coming to visit his dad. He was doing a gig in Toronto, I guess. And he came to St. Jacobs to visit his dad. And we're sitting in the dining room. I was going, I'm thinking of writing a book. He goes, really? What are you going to write about? I said, I'm going to write an interview book. And he goes, oh, God, you can't do that. There's only one book you can write. You write about there's only one fucking book you can write. Write about the fucking back door. What's wrong with you? And I kind of went, what?
It wasn't obvious to you?
I can't, what? Mm-hmm. I can't do that. And then I thought, maybe I can. Mm-hmm. So then I, started putting the pieces together. And the first big piece was Milan and Carla. So Milan kind of, gave me the history of how he and Carla were in Czechoslovakia. They escaped, in 1968 because the Russians were coming in. So they escaped and came to Canada or in Toronto. It's all in the book anyway. And then they came here and started the Metro and all of that. So I had to have, where did the back door come from? What did it start as? Well, it started as a lounge, like it was a German restaurant. It was owned by a guy named Rudy Meister. So they had a lounge downstairs where families could go with their kids and have maybe a drink, right? And then Rudy sold to these two Czech guys. And next thing you know, it's a blacklight bar, which attracted bikers and underage kids because they were playing Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and all this kind of stuff. And then Milan gets to town going, I'm sick of these bikers and these underage kids. I'm putting a disco in. So it had to come from somewhere. And then I thought, there's been so many incarnations of this bar. And another journalist called it Phyllis Diller. I mean, he's right. This bar has had more facelifts than Phyllis Diller.
I love it. That's fantastic.
It's been a comedy bar. It was the first Yuck Yucks. Mm-hmm. It was the first disco. It was the first punk bar. It was an all ages bar that Mike took over. He did an all ages bar and no alcohol, and he brought in young Danny Michelle. The Rhinos were playing. They were like a house band.
I think I was at that show.
More than likely. Mm-hmm. And, then after that, it was a jazz bar. And, I thought, well, there's all these young musicians playing jazz at U of W and Laurier, and they needed a place to jam. So they jammed down at Vines. I had no idea till I started writing the book. So it was a pretty fascinating timeline. And my editor said, don't write a timeline. Let's mix it all up. Because I had this, I don't even know why I did this, but I wrote this diary or this journal called The Guiding Schnitzel. We used to have, Carl and Milan would go to Lulu's all the time, and everybody knew they had a schnitzel house. So some of the artists from Lulu's would show up at the Metro to eat, like Brenda Lee, and or if they were at Center in the Square, same thing. Martha and Reeves and the Vandellas, they showed up though one night to eat. So you'd have famous people coming in, and Carlos going, "We need an autograph book. So let's do an autograph book." And I thought, let's do a diary, because in the afternoons I was bored, right? oh God, Melinda hears this. This isn't good. But anyway, I'd be sitting with a coffee and writing in the diary about this is what's going on upstairs today. And this is what's going on downstairs. So that kind of helped me trace everything that happened downstairs, the good and the bad. And we called it the Guiding Schnitzel. And I thought I only wrote one volume, but it turns out I was at Melanza one day and his daughter Katrina was visiting, and she said, "Oh, Coral, I've got a surprise for you." And apparently, I'd written 3 volumes of this stuff.
Wow.
So 7 years. I went,
wow.
Holy crap! This is great. Now I can remember in detail what happened downstairs because it's written. So people would say, "Oh, I remember this." I go, "I'm sorry, it's written in the Guiding Schnitzel that it happened like this
what was
and
that
this
like
year and this
digging
date."
through that? How did that feel?
I was laughing my head off.
I bet.
But it was like the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
It was like a shaft of light shone down onto the book. Here's the Holy Grail, the Guiding Schnitzel. I couldn't have done it without the Guiding Schnitzel, honest to God. And I still have them all at home.
Amazing.
And there's some pictures of the Guiding Schnitzel in the book as well, like autographed, people that autographed the Guiding Schnitzel. And the funniest night for me is when Long John Baldry came to town. This English blues singer with this amazing voice who used to do, cartoons and stuff like that as well. But I knew him in England from Thank Your Lucky Stars. He was a host and his very low voice, And he comes to town and we're doing a show at Rogers. I was working with Lawrence McNaught and Margot. And it was a show called Profile. And it wasn't, you didn't have a cushy studio or anything like that. It was a chair and two chairs and a table. And they would go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Coral, you're on the air. So there's me and Long John Baldry yapping. And so we did that. And then we had some time to kill. I said, "Why don't you come to the Metro for dinner?" Said, "Oh, yeah, it's a great idea." So he had his bass player show up. And because we had time to kill, we're sitting in the back room. We had, I think, 2 liters of red wine. A full dinner. It was great. I bought him dinner. And then we went up to CKWR to do the late night show, Coral FM. That was fun because we were both like, he's going, "Coral, let me tell you my most embarrassing story." I'm like, oh my God. But my friend Tracy Jackson, she's in the book. She knew Long John Baldry as well because of her then boyfriend at the time, Gary Lima. He was a big fan of the Dice. And so it was all connected. And I said, well, John never played downstairs, but he was upstairs. They were trying to get him downstairs at one point because there was a live music venue down there called Club FM. And run by a guy named Fraser Yates, who was a musician producer out of Brantford. And he was working with people at the Coronet because they were bringing in live music back then as well. So they were trying to get John downstairs, but it was a hefty price tag. The tickets would have been like $25, $30 back then, and he didn't think people would pay that. So John never made it downstairs. I think he would have liked it though. Interesting guy, lots of great stories. But yeah, we had Helix would show up at the Metro all the time because the train was right there. So you'd have people popping in all the time, and they would sign the Guiding Schnitzel, and so it was a lot of fun. But I thought, I can't believe there's 3 volumes of this. But it really did. It helped me write the book.
Oh yeah.
So local author Dave McPherson has written about the Horseshoe Tavern. He's also written about Massey Hall.
Yes.
But in your case with The Back Door, if you hadn't written that book, probably nobody else would have. I'm just saying how if Dave didn't write about Massey Hall or Horseshoe, other people have documented it well. Right. It might have been still written about. But in this case, this is one of those books that's like, that was the book for Coral to write. And if Coral hadn't written it, like time travel, it would be gone. You know what I mean? It's alive today because you wrote it. Right?
It's actually The Back Door wants me to do an event. So the waitress there, she said, "Oh, Coral, the book." They put the book in the middle of it. They had it in the front lobby, and I said, "Oh, don't leave it in the front lobby. Somebody will steal it. You need to put it in a safe place." So it's in the middle of a glass case with china, right in the middle. And she said, customers are coming in asking where they can get this book because a lot of them went downstairs, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to do an event out in the parking lot sometime in the fall. I said,
great idea.
And there's a couple of bands that play downstairs that couldn't make the launch. One of them is Dave Ray from Teenage Head. They were in a band called The Shakers. The other one is Acid Test. They were in the movie, I think, Roadkill. And they did the song Mr. Skin. So they played down there when it was Flippers, 1988, 89.
Flippers, yeah.
And so we're thinking of doing an event out in the back parking lot, so we'll see. But yeah, I said, I'm sorry. They said, no, people are coming and asking, where can we get this book? But it's all about remembering, And when I was doing the launch at the registry, the second part, when I was doing the reading, I went, okay, I know you're all sitting here right now and you're wondering, oh my God, is she going to read about me? So it's a little bit about that too. Am I in the book? Did I make the book? Because I did so many interviews and I didn't tell anybody whether we're going to be in the book or not, just for fun.
Oh yeah, they've got to find out for themselves.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I felt a real sense of nostalgia myself. Now, of course, I'm that little bit younger, so I would have been in later incarnations going to see live music in this space. But I was recently down on Erin Street because I was going to Civilian Print Company, which is down there now. But I parked somewhere I shouldn't, and I had to kind of because I couldn't find park. There's never any parking over there. It's a whole problem. And I had to come around the back of the metro, and I thought, oh, you know what? It's so funny. I had just started reading Coral's book. Now I'm standing here, broad daylight. It looks like nothing back here, and just sort of had that moment of thinking like all of the people that passed through this space right here. It's special. But without this documentation, like Marshall said, those memories are sort of poof, they're gone forever,
And eventually they're just gone for good.
And eventually they're gone for good.
Yeah.
Just like we sort of lament these like event spaces. Like I used to love to go, because I'm the right age, I used to love to go to the Volcano for live music.
Yeah, that's right.
Places like that.
I like
And if
Mrs.
they're gone,
Robinson's.
they're gone.
Mrs.
was
Robinson's was just down the street.
Yeah,
so
the
we had a
station.
lot of people come in from Mrs. Robinson's too. And I've had people say, well, now that you've written about the back door, you should write about these bars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same because I didn't work there. You need somebody that worked there
need someone
to
that
write.
knows.
You need somebody that knows what actually went down at the Volcano and Mrs. Robinson's.
Yeah, you have an intimate knowledge of what the space was like on a day-to-day basis.
So I couldn't, I couldn't do that unless I worked there. It wouldn't feel the same. It would be, I'd be on the outside. Well, yeah, I remember the Volcano. I went down there. I saw a bunch of bands there. I remember Forgotten Rebels played down there because Mickey was a guest on my radio show and we were calling down the Volcano to talk to the guys in the band. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But
what a troupe they are.
yeah. Oh, well, they played down there in April of 1981 and that is a concert of concerts, let me tell you.
I remember listening to that record and being like, am I going to get into trouble? who's gonna is Jesus gonna care? It's like young enough because 1981 I probably came across that record maybe in 84 85 and was a little kid thinking, am I allowed to listen to this? I don't know.
Yeah, you would have been only 5 in 1981.
Yeah that's the year I started kindergarten.
Mickey is a news hound. Like he's a news junkie. He watches the news all the time. So, and I was a little dubious having him as a guest. I go, you cannot swear. You do not swear. He's, oh yeah, all right. I won't. But he did, and I go, okay.
It's like I can't filter it. It's part of. We were just talking about this too with Mike Morris. It's part of my vernacular. It's part of my vocabulary. I can't take it out.
Well, on radio, like daytime radio, there's no way you could say the F word. You can get away with shit, but not not the F word. And I go, people say that. I go, well, you're an art form. So you can kind of get away with it, but no, that's the first no in broadcasting.
Well, this
Not
is
allowed to say that.
This is a internet podcast.
Yeah, it's
we can say whatever
different.
the fuck we want on
Yeah,
this.
that's right. Fucking great. That's fucking great. That is. Anyway.
Coral, when you launch a book, I'm thinking about there's so many steps that happen here. Everything from dropping off some books to David Worsley and Mandy at Wordsworth Books. You go to Encore Records with your books. You've made some connection, some relationship with all these people. You need some media coverage. Pretty sure you know some people at the Waterloo Region Record and CBC Radio. So you take care of that. But then the day comes and you launch your book. And I always think to myself, if you pack the venue, it's kind of like a mirror of your community. You're seeing yourself and your work.
You said the same thing about Playtime.
With Playtime, the fact that there was a button every single seat.
Yeah.
To get to that point, somebody's been working, to.
Well, it was weird. I had Alison Brown help me. She's a musician and she helped me get the grant. And she's an events planner. She's amazing. She's out of Windsor, but she does radio there too. And we met a couple of years ago when I told her I wanted to write this book. And she said, well, I can help you get the grant. So she helped me with that. And then she went to all the media and she said, nobody said no. Like everybody, even 570 News, like Mike Farwell is somebody that went to the Metro for years and had no clue there was a scene downstairs. Joel Rubinoff the same, right? They're like bugging me
didn't.
about this.
I want to make like a joke, like, guys, were you cool enough to go or what?
No, I go, look, you guys are both younger than me.
there we go.
That's why, right? And then I'm doing, like, I did a podcast out of Vancouver called Liner Notes for Dusty Discs Radio. I did something for Sirius XM with Eric Alper. Like, people are just coming to me out of the woodwork and asking me to do, to chat with them about the book. So there's that. And then when the Registry Theater offered me that night, I went, well, it's a theater, so I'm not going to just stand up there and read a book. I'm going to turn this into a backdoor reunion, kind of. So the first people I need are Lindsay Stewart, who is he's a musician and he's an actor, he's done a lot of films and stuff like that. Really interesting guy and a great writer. And Scott Wicken, because they were both part of the poetry scene down at the back door of Four Words Unspoken. I need those two. So they said yes right away, which was really cool. And then I needed a band. And then Eric Claver had this band called Invisible College he used to play downstairs. So we brought them on board. And then I went, I need Kevin, right? Kevin DeBolt. So then we got, I found Brando Valentino, and he actually rents out equipment. So we got 2 turntables and microphones, set him up in the main area. And then I had a table where I was selling books, and I hung T-shirts on the wall, all my T-shirts I used to have from the back door and stuff like that. And we made it an event. So, and I also said, come, if you want to dress back door, just do it. So people did.
Good.
So we made it a happening. It wasn't just a book it wasn't just me getting up and reading segments of the book. I just said, we're turning this into a show. I haven't produced a show for a long time. So Alice and I co-produced this thing together, and it worked really well. And then Tara Butler, that was
Love
bizarre.
Tara.
I ran to her at the Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery, and I was telling her, I said, well, I was telling her about the book, and I said, we had this poetry night called Four Words Unspoken. And we had a guy come downstairs one night and read an X-rated version of the Sugar Plum Fairy. So I'm just wondering if you'd be interested in dancing the Sugar Plum Fairy for a book event that I'm having at the Registry Theater. She goes, oh my God, I'm in. So she did kind of a hardcore rock version of Sugar Plum Fairy.
She's so talented.
Yeah, and that blew everybody away, and she had so much fun.
Good.
So, it was quite the night, and then I couldn't believe for 3 days, people were saying, well, I was going to get tickets and it's sold out. Can I get in? I'm going, Allison. She goes, guest list or door? I went, door. Okay, $15 cash, they're in, right? And then people would come and buy the book. So it was a crazy night. Lauren said, I haven't seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this.
I love that Lawrence and Sam are so open to doing whatever in
Oh,
the
yeah.
theater. They're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
this is a space for people to enjoy. This is not just
No.
sit down in the chairs and enjoy some live theater. This is an event space. It's a space for the community, and we're going to try different things here.
Oh, I love the registry.
You deserve it.
I love the registry theater. Yay, Lauren.
That's a chant from wrestling. The fans go, you deserve it. Coral, I think there's some neat connections between your book and Sarah's film Playtime. I was thinking about how Playtime has a cast of just a handful of characters in it.
Yes.
But what you're seeing there is not just those people. You're seeing all the things that influence them. You're thinking of all the creative minds that made the toys that impacted their lives. You're thinking about all the joy. They're talking about a parent or a family member who gave that to them, a time in their life when they got that toy. So for whatever number of names didn't make it into your book, there's an exponential amount of people who influenced that book and were part of that, even if you can't name them all, right?
Yes.
And you must feel that energy when you put a book out like that, and then more memories come to you. Like people have it's like a funeral, I guess. Like people, sometimes you're hearing a story about somebody for the first time at a memorial service, right?
We've since the book came out, there's a whole bunch of people that have come forward like, I was down there. So there's a whole bunch of stuff on Facebook, and we're thinking of setting up a website. So there's a lot of images that didn't get into the book. Like Pat took so many pictures, Patrick Weiss. So I got to give him a huge amount of credit, because without Pat, I couldn't have done this book either.
People are always chirping me because I take pictures of everything.
Well,
but God damn it, if they don't appreciate it 3 years down the road, I'm trying to say everybody appreciates it after the fact. In the time, it's annoying and irritating. They're like, oh, another photo.
Yeah.
But It means something.
Or how many books have Ed the Sock in them?
Well, that was a strange night. That was I'll go back. I will mention this too, but Ed the Sock. Okay, so there's an English promoter named Peter Jacobs, and he was working with the British invasion, these types of people. You know, Jerry and the Pacemakers. We did a night together at BONN Park, and I took them to the Metro for something to eat.
It's gonna be
lunch.
all right, all right, all right.
Yeah,
It's gonna be all right. That song is always.
Jerry's a lot of fun. He told me lots of great stories about John Lennon. But anyway, so Peter goes, I go, who else do you have on your roster? And he's, this British guy, Cockney guy goes, I got Ed the Sock. I went, I'm sorry, what now? Ed the Sock? Yeah, I got Ed the Sock. Do you want him? I went, oh, okay. So then he gets back to me, he goes, yeah, Ed says yes, he'll come down and do it. I went, oh God. So that was his first live gig out of Toronto. So Milan and I, and he charged $15 for tickets, right? Which was probably way too much back then, because we're talking,
I saw that on the poster. I thought, $15.
This is like 1994, I think, May 1994, because I did the posters myself and put them out all over the place, right? And Milan says, okay, we gotta, he can't just stand up there with a sock in his hand. We gotta get it. We found a couch. We put it on the little tiny dance floor. He's behind the couch. It was ridiculous. There were no women left by the end of the night. And I remember George Wolfe that ran Vines. He goes, oh, no one was there to see Sock. Like, very few people saw Sock. And I went, yeah, no kidding. And then, the first thing he said to me was, hey, Coral, you want to light my cigar? I mean, okay. And it went from there, right? Yeah. It was awful. Yeah. And then we went to the late night show. We did Coral FM, and he's behind me, right? And he's going, I need some iced tea, man, because I'm not used to doing Ed all by myself. I always have a co-host, right? So it was an interesting evening, to say the least, but it was a one-off for Vines. It was an interesting experiment, and I asked Ed, do you want a comic for the book? He goes, I don't remember the gig, but you can use the poster. I went, okay, fine. Good enough for me.
I'll take it.
But that was crazy. Mm-hmm. And then I just want to go back to the cast of characters. I also have to give kudos to my editors, Sarah B. Hood from Toronto, and I wrote for her for years. And she was the first person I thought of for an editor, and also Siobhan McCullum, because she helped me a lot with editorial stuff. But Sarah said, okay, like I sent her 30 chapters. She goes, okay, let's shorten this. Let's have a cast of characters. Like, have Milan, have Sipko, have Tracy, have John, have Kevin, have like everybody that worked down there. Make them into a character. Bring the guiding schnitzel up to the top of the book. I thought, okay, that's really interesting. And then when you talk about them further on in the book, you can use first name, because they're already a character that's been established. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. So thanks to Sarah, I did that. But without those two, again, I got to give credit where credit's due. It's like, I just thought, oh, I can write a book. It's 52 stories. You know what it's like, Marshall. You're a writer. It's like, okay, 52 stories I can put together, no problem. Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Let's talk about how much work that actually is, because you received a Regional Waterloo Arts Fund grant for this.
Yes.
And I love, there's some wording in the forward when we were talking about Betty Ann Keller being a survivor of the local arts and culture scene, which is such a great way of putting it. You're just blunt about it. Like, yeah, this is a hard gig to get paid for the type of things that we do. I know that a Regional Waterloo Arts Fund grant isn't going to pay you the salary and the time necessary for this type of book. It gives you a little boost, like, okay, I can commit some time to this. But it's a monumental amount of work to put this life together into one story.
Yes.
How long did this take? What did this process look like?
It was I guess about 2.5 years, maybe. And getting the grant, thank you, Regional Waterloo Arts Fund, by the way, helped me. I could hire an editor, 2 editors, and a photographer. So that's the first thing I thought of. I didn't think about
for free.
Yeah, I didn't think of making any money from this book, but now the book has come out, and it's how many months later?
It's doing well.
Oh boy!
I bought my copy of Encore Records. Go talk to Mark Logan.
I'm in my 3rd printing now, so amazing. It's crazy. So I paid for the printing myself. So it's paying for itself, which is really great, because they're saying, make sure you've got a little bit of money left over for yourself by the end of the grant. I go, I'm used to producing shows, this and that, and I don't care. There's hardly any money usually left for the person that puts it all together. But just putting it all together and seeing it up on its feet is enough. Like is just that's enough for me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was a lot. And again, Sarah told me, you are not writing a book without doing a chapter. You got to do a book outline. You got to know where it starts and where it ends.
Marshall talks about this a lot.
Figure out chapter 1. So I had, chapter 1, points in chapter 1, chapter 2. So I had up to chapter 30 at one point. And, and she goes, it's going to change as you go. And that's what I found. But without the outline, without the skeleton, without the bones, I couldn't put the flesh into the book. Oh, that sounds kind of creepy.
No,
but you know what I mean?
It makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, so that helped me a lot.
In this, just to bring the conversation full circle as we start to wind down, something else Rod Serling in this guest lecture talked about was...
Is Rod on your mind because I lent you that book?
Yes.
Everything I need to know I learned from the Twilight Zone.
I love the Twilight Zone.
Yep, it's an awesome book, Sarah.
Apologies for interrupting you again.
That's okay. He talks about how if you know the ending of the story, and he uses the term climax every time, in the case of a Twilight Zone episode, if you know the climax as a writer, you just build up towards then. He says, but a lot of times we don't have an ending. We're just writing, and we're hoping that somewhere there's this moment.
It'll reveal itself.
I remember Neil Peart referred to it as the moment of triumph is not when a song is done, but rather when you see it's going to work.
Yes.
So I guess my question for you is, did you already have an ending planned out, or two, did you have that? You have to wait for that moment of triumph partway through. You go, I know how this is going to finish.
I knew how it was going to finish, and then Sarah made a suggestion. She said, "Okay, why don't we wrap it up with what's punk today?" And I thought, "Oh, that's a good idea." Mm-hmm. Because back in 1977, England was kind of in a mess. But now, let's face it, like England's fucked. Like, with a prime minister being compared to a piece of lettuce. But I say this in the book, you think of Winston Churchill, the great orator, and then you think of, is it Liz Truss? Oh my God. And now they've got the youngest prime minister in history. So, England there's no Malcolm McLaren there. There's no Vivienne Westwood. Well, literally no Vivienne Westwood anymore. She's passed away. Mm-hmm. And no Malcolm McLaren. There's nobody there to cause chaos. There's no Johnny Lydon doesn't give a shit anymore. Those guys are like long past. So there is kind of punk. There are punk sounding bands and pop punk and this punk and that punk and oi punk and yeah punk, whatever. But I think the punk ethic, the only thing I could think of that was really punk is DIY. So I'm thinking, I'm doing my book DIY. So I'm I'm giving it to independent bookstores. I'm selling it to people one-on-one.
Yes.
Ebook doesn't feel right to me.
Although I would love to see this in an audio version.
But
I love an
audiobook feels good to me.
And Coral, in your voice, I mean, come on. Come on.
So I've had someone approach me about doing an audiobook. Mm-hmm. I just, I talked to David Manny at Wordsworth. I go, an ebook feels wrong to me. It just doesn't feel...
It's not punk enough.
It's not punk enough, right? So, and then I was talking to
Unless you have Eric Begg of the punk bands, his voice, that'd be great.
Yeah, but the ebook is like it's the digital version where you're turning the pages. We're all in on an audiobook here. Okay. Yeah,
yeah, because there's a musician named Peter Ulrich from Dead Can Dance in England.
I freaking love Dead Can Dance. I don't know if you know this, but I got hooked on that in high school, and I listen to it still to this day. I just made a video with using one of their songs illegally.
Peter is we're good pals. Mm-hmm. So he sent me his book, and I sent him a PDF of my book, and he went, "Oh, Coral, I can't read this." Like, he's also a writer in it. He's also a journalist, a publicist, too. He goes, "Can't read this on the screen. I need the real thing." So he's ordering a book from Wordsworth. Mm-hmm. So I tell David Manny at Wordsworth, guess what? Peter has a book out called Dead Can Dance and Parallel Adventures.
Oh, I need to see this.
And so Wordsworth is bringing that book in.
Now I know where I'm going to get my copy. My favorite bookstore, Wordsworth Books.
It's awesome. And so some people don't like, and I don't like reading a book on a screen either. I'm a tangible person. I like to read a book in my hand. So I'm thinking, okay, but an audio book, I've heard audiobooks and they're fun and they're like more like theater. And so I feel that's the next thing for me to do.
Yeah. I love this idea, Coral.
Yeah.
Give me
I love
the audio
the
version.
fact that in the case of your book, Wordsworth is not competing with Amazon, right?
No.
Right?
Yeah.
No.
This is where you're going to buy the book.
Also not punk to be on
It's
Amazon.
not.
You
And
know?
it's not. And now Old Gold Books wants it as well. So that's really cool.
Fantastic.
And Looking for Heroes has it. XTC Music has it. The Rookery in Cambridge has it.
Encore, that's where I bought mine.
And Encore, of course, and Studio Comics Press. So there's a whole bunch of different eclectic stores that carry the book. And it's funny, when I first got the grant, Sara Hood pitched the idea to a publisher in Toronto, and they said, "Oh well, who really cares about a 30-year-old punk bar?"
Everybody.
Yeah.
They said, "If the writing's good, we'll take a look at it."
Yeah,
I went, "Sara, I don't have time for this. Like, I've got to get this thing written. I'm under deadline. I have a grant. I'm just going to write the thing and then figure out what the hell I'm going to do." And then Allison said, "Self-publish. Yep. Might as well self-publish." And I thought, okay, well, why not? So here we are.
BONN Park is made possible with the support of the Waterloo Region Community Foundation, the Kitchener Public Library, our local sponsors, and you, our loyal listeners.
We make this show in Sarah's kitchen. If you like it, please rate and subscribe.
That helps us get the word out to more listeners.
The BONN Park theme song is by Alan Lung. Sarah and I are super excited for season 4 and all the amazing shows we're going to bring you.
We're also really excited about our secret side podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. And it's not actually about wrestling.
No, it isn't. It's about a lot of things.
Mostly life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of laughter.
Yeah, there's tons and tons of laughter.
We're incredibly proud of it. So please check it out on all your streaming platforms. An unscripted, I can't say it. Can you say it?
An unscripted spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Meow, 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 meow.